Hello, everyone, and welcome. First episode of Married to Wrestling with your host, the lovely. She's so lovely, that's why she's on the promo pictures. ECW original, Miss Angel Amoroso. I hope I pronounced that
Greetings.
right.
Yes. The Virgin Princess Angel, the queen of hardcore, Angel Amoroso, ECW's original head cheerleader for triple threat leader. But we'll get all into that, right, Corey?
Well, I guess the first question, because this is the first episode, I'd like to ask, how did you get started in the wrestling business for all the people that don't know?
Okay, so I was brought in as a child, of course, a fan like everyone else. I went to shows with my family, my mother, my father, my brother, my sister, to the local civic center and Spectrum for NWA and WWF shows. So my father was very good friends with Dennis Carluzzo, who was and Larry Sharp, who everyone knows, Pretty Boy Larry Sharp of the Monster Factory, who's trained so many. Everyone knows who Larry Sharp is. My father was very good friends with those gentlemen. So we got pretty good seats going to the shows, and I was quite the ringside heckler. Now we started going to these shows when I was about 10 years old. So we were sitting pretty close to the ring, and I became a really well-known heckler to the wrestlers. Like I had the loudest voice, and of course at that age, I did not look like I was 10 years old. And there's if we could pop up some pictures, as example, you'd see. But starting as a heckler, sitting with my dad, after he kind of stopped going and left me in the hands of Dennis Carluzzo and Larry Sharp. I joined a fan club with my brother and sister, run by Joel Goodhart, who later ran TWA wrestling, which was the right before ECW. So it was like one of the original companies before that. He had a radio show called Wrestling Radio. So he hosted that, and he had a fan club going. So myself and my sister joined the fan club, and my brother joined the fan club along with other members like Rob Feinstein and announcer Eric Arjulo, Mike Manna, Stevie Richards, the Blue Meanie. A lot of people were in the fan club back now we're dating back around 1987 or so. So I was around 12 years old at this time, and had joined the fan club, and we took trips as far as like we're all from Philadelphia, so we would all take bus trips to like Baltimore and Virginia, and as far as Chicago and Memphis, Tennessee. We went all the way to Memphis, Tennessee to see USWA wrestling as a group of wrestling fans, and we all got to meet with the wrestlers and had dinners and lunches with them, and the local hotel around here kind of served as a meet and greet sort of that was free. And the hotel in the area, which was the Marriott at the time, was always mobbed with fans. It was like sardines shoved together. People all showed up to see someone in the lobby checking in and get their autograph, and then only certain people were allowed in the bar area as to where the wrestlers would attend afterwards. And that's where the fan club also, even though a lot of us were children, were in the bar with the wrestlers, and they traveled with the group, being a part of that fan club. So that fan club, the wrestling radio fan club, was how I actually started traveling with wrestling, and being around the shows more regularly. And after I traveled with them for a while, then Dennis Carluzzo and Larry Sharp, who brought me to the Monster Factory due to my dad, it got me in a lot of different athletics and sports. I did mixed martial arts and karate and fist fighting and cat fighting and apartment wrestling videos when I was starting at 10 years old. I did videos with adult film stars and other girls who were into mixed martial arts. I did boxing and whatnot for Fight Time Video and El Scott Sales, which still has those videos that are not exactly within the lines of the law, but still have them available for sale online today. So I got a lot into doing that as my sporting background. And when then it came to professional wrestling, Larry Sharp and Dennis Carluzzo, I would go to the school quite a bit. And when the other wrestlers would leave, then it was my time to train with my sister, because previous to that, Dominic DeNucci at one point offered to train us, but then ended up being really inappropriate with me and mauling me when I was like 12 years old. So that didn't work out, and I didn't get to train with Dominic DeNucci back in a time when Shane Douglas and Mick Foley and all those people were working his shows. Like, I could have gotten trained by Dominic DeNucci when I was 12 years old, but he was a really huge scumbag. So moving on, I did get my time in with Larry Sharp in the Monster Factory, and Dennis Carluzzo then brought me around to shows, and I got booked as everything from a timekeeper to a people that carry wardrobe from the ring, to then being a ring card girl, which was like, round one, round two, we're advertising for, this mechanic or this insurance company, which was usually one of Dennis's businesses. So I started out doing that, very early, like when I was 12, very early, as in those positions, and worked my way into being a valet. I was the first manager, the first female manager, Larry Sharp being the first manager, but me being the second manager and first female manager of the Pitbulls was my first position as being a valet. So, and then moving on from there, I debuted on a show that was a benefit for Tom Robinson, which anyone could look up and see on the internet if you need proof of what I'm saying. I was 15 years old, and I debuted on officially on a show with a card loaded of talent that then were all working for the NWA. And I was like probably the only one that didn't officially have a job, because I was 15 years old. I managed I don't know if you're familiar with Cloudy, or Jimmy Shoulders is the name he used. He debuted shortly after I managed him. He left and then shortly debuted in WWF as Cloudy, a
Oh,
cross-dress
yeah,
cheerleader.
with Sonny and
Sonny,
Skip. And okay,
yeah,
now I know what you're talking about.
exactly. So that was who I managed for. That was the first wrestler that the singles wrestler that I managed from the Monster Factory, debuting on a show. And it was like, it was just ridiculous. He at 15 years old, he grabbed me, kissed me while we were getting in the ring, with his big blue lips and nasty tongue. So at 15 years old, I'm in a ring getting kissed by this like a disgusting wrestler. But that's how I debuted on a show with an enormous amount of talent for a benefit show. And then moving on from let's see, my 15-year-old debut, I managed several shows along with Gary Wolf and Anthony Durante as the manager of the Pitbulls. And then I took a small little trip off. I took a little time off to get married and have a child at 15. My beautiful daughter Christina as a result of that. And right when then I got divorced, I got called back at my birthday party at a bar when I hadn't even turned 18 yet. So sorry for that ding ding. Yeah, so I hadn't even turned 18 yet. And I was at a bar when I was called back to wrestling after I said I absolutely would not go back. Uh, Gary Juster, who was like one of the promoters of the NWA back in the day, had a little sit down with me and talked me into going to see Todd Gordon because Todd Gordon at the time was running the beginnings of Eastern Championship Wrestling in the area at a sports bar. And then he also had just gotten the arena at the time and, really wanted me to be a part of things. Eddie Gilbert was there at the time. Eddie Gilbert, who I also had known from my past in wrestling, which was my past in wrestling as I traveled with the NWA for several years as a child between the ages of 12 and 15 years old as a servicer, let's say, a teenage ring rat. So that was my childhood with the NWA / WCW, whatever you'd like to call them, 20 plus wrestlers when I was a teenager I had sex with. Whether or not they want to admit that is totally up to them. But this is me telling my story. So moving on from there.
Did anybody, when you were when that was happening, when you were traveling as a child, did anybody look out for you, take care of you, protect you?
If they did, it wouldn't happen. I mean, I was brought and treated like an adult, acted like an adult, treated like an adult, was living the life of an adult, doing all the things that the friends that were around me, the 40-year-old groupies that had been around me long before I was around, who, had seen all the wrestlers come in and out of every promotion that was in town pretty much. And then soon after I, was in the Wrestling Radio fan club and we met and they caught eye of me, they wanted me to sit with them. And Gary wanted me there because I did quite loud and quite the attraction. If you had ever been to a Civic Center show, people that know me here understand what I'm saying. But before I ever started working, and I was just a child in a crowd, I was quite the attraction and the big mouth that you couldn't avoid while you were sitting at shows. You could hear me at pay-per-views very loud back in 80, 88, 89. 90, 91. If you look up any of the Halloween Havoc and all the, Clash of the Champions, I am in the front row screaming my little head off. So, this is Christina, can you come plug this in, please? Sorry about that. So, yeah, you can pretty much see me on pay-per-views, screaming up a storm in the front row with my adult groupie friends. So that's how I started out there.
I want to ask you because Todd is God, in my opinion. Todd Gordon, don't know him personally. I'd love to meet him, but I love Todd Gordon. I can't wait for his book. I guess I never met him. Don't have bad things to say about him. I love Todd Gordon, but I'm curious. Todd Gordon, got you into at the time Tri-State or Eastern Championship Wrestling. And right. You were friends, obviously, known Dennis Corluzzo at a young age. When Todd and Paulie did the swerve, because at the end of the day, a swerve's a swerve, it's fuck job, and Shane threw the belt down, how did you feel? Were you kind of like, I get where ECW's going, or poor Dennis Corluzzo, or that had to make you feel a little odd, kind of torn between?
Well, the thing is, knowing what was going to happen and what was going on, I wasn't allowed at the show because at the time I was, because I was involved with so many people when I was younger, when ECW and the NWA New Jersey then started running and having a feud against each other, I was still on both sides. So, there were a lot of times that a lot of people wouldn't have made their way, the people that came here to work for ECW thinking that they could get used and then wouldn't have gotten over the bridge to work for the NWA and not make it a waste of their trip if it wasn't for me bringing them back and forth. So, and I knew all the sneaky things that were going on with spies in the locker room, back and forth, Tony Rumble and who, what not, and being sent back and forth to, spy on people and do this and that. And I knew about it. I didn't want to get involved. um there's only so much that you can try to talk someone out of something without telling them what's going on, because you don't want to, it's just maybe not your place to do. But I tried my best to talk Dennis out of even attending the event, and there were a lot of situations surrounding them doing that to the NWA title, and that it led up to it, a lot of personal things between Paul and Dennis, and Dennis's partner Gino, who used to call like the fire marshal on ECW, and get make it so that they couldn't run shows. And oddly, at one point I got blamed for that somehow being in the mix, just because the go between back and forth. I was in the middle of that, and it made me very uncomfortable to see
What?
what they did to Dennis. And Dennis at a time, people have to realize at that point, Dennis was a little sick. He felt ill for a while. I won't say with what, that's his business, but I don't think he comprehended at that moment exactly what had went on, and he didn't really realize it until after the event, you know what I mean? So it was kind of he had a delayed reaction to it, and uh, a lot of us were shocked. I wasn't really shocked, but like I said, I was going back and forth. So you know
Now, if I
there's
can
only
go,
so much feeling I could have, more towards one than the other. I know them both the same amount of time, and it's there's just like certain feelings I have and certain ones I don't.
if I can go back a little bit before that happened, when Paul Heyman, Paul E. Dangerously started booking. Before that, Eddie Gilbert, who you knew, was the booker.
Yeah.
All you ever hear from anyone is Eddie and Todd had a falling out. Hey, no one ever goes, do you know what the falling out could have been about? No one ever says. Everybody just says, yeah, Eddie was just falling out, said goodbye, and Paulie took over. Do you have any idea why? I've heard Eddie went a little nuts. I've heard, you hear different stories. Eddie never struck
Eddie
as most stable.
Eddie didn't go nuts. Eddie was running a program, and I think that there was an opportunity seen that Paul then was interjected into the situation, and Paul had ideas that were different, a lot different than Eddie's, that were changing in a timely fashion with the business, that within the area of Philadelphia, really hard area to get over with, and to get stories across with. And sometimes the element of bringing the South type wrestling up north, especially back in that time. If you had know anything about Philly fans, they've always been very difficult, and it seemed like just a better idea to go with changing it up a little bit, and having Paul be the booker, and update things as things progress with time and wrestling. So of course Eddie Gilbert, it felt like he was being pushed out because he was, and a lot of things were done behind his back in order to get him out, which is not right, but that is how wrestling is. and and then the locker room was destroyed by Doug Gilbert and Eddie and everyone else in the process. And it was something that sometimes it's just time for people to go. If things aren't working in the area the way you're doing it, then move on and just move on. Like, can't cry over spilt milk. I loved Eddie Gilbert. Loved Eddie Gilbert. I liked the way he was doing things, but I'm not your typical Philly fan either. Uh, but it is what it is.
I like when he ran Jerry Lawler over with his car. I mean, I liked wrestling. I like my Southern brass. That's why I like Smoky Mountain a lot. But yeah, for like you said, that East Coast crowd, they didn't want that. And the one thing I think I give Paul Heyman a lot of credit for. I give him credit for two things. One, he was the first guy to just take people and make his own stars. I like that. And I also like the fact that I have a lot of respect for when he became as he became more of the booker, and when Todd was gone and he was the owner, he took himself off as a character on TV. And I do like that. I hate that goddamn that authority figure character. It's so played out over the years. So I liked how he did that. But yeah, you said the locker room changed. All the Snookas, Morocco's, Hawks, they're all gone, and now Public Enemy, the Rottens. The only person he really kept was Terry Funk.
Right. And with all the work that Paul actually had to do in the locker room to help create all the new characters, and then had talked people into new storylines and doing things that people had never done before. Like, it's not an easy thing to sit down and talk someone into mutilating themselves or getting their clothes ripped off in front of a building full of people when they're a kid, or taking a move that no one has ever taken before and getting your neck broken like I did. So it's like and all these new matches that were like, oh well, this stuff can never be done in here and blah blah blah. And he's like, well, here goes a Singapore cane, here goes your barbed wire bats, and your ultra violent extreme friggin' wrestling, that this is the time of change, and an era where things where, like Dusty Rhodes was saying, how one of the main reasons why I was brought into ECW in 1993, Super Summer Sizzler Spectacular, was because Dusty Rhodes was, talking about how the Tiger and Peaches thing would just be a passing thing, and no women would ever get naked in sport, and not even topless. It was never going to happen. And he ran his mouth about what would and would not happen. So then in comes me to prove him wrong. I was never a big fan of Dusty Rhodes either way, but progressing in that match, then at 18-year-old, 3 months as an 18-year-old, I got my top ripped off in front of a building full of people, and that was Eddie Gilbert's doing, though, just to prove Dusty Rhodes wrong. But that was my introduction into ECW. So that was the first thing that I was used for. I wasn't really attached to any other wrestlers. I came in to interject myself into a match that Tiger and Peaches were having a feud in, and and there it went. So that was my intro. And I was, after Eddie Gilbert was out the door, I was still kept around. So it wasn't, it wasn't such a horrifying transition for me at all.
You were put with the franchise, Shane Douglas at first, correct?
Well, initially, after I got my top ripped off, then I did a November to Remember, which was an angle with Sherry Martel, which we were supposed to wrestle, and then she was supposed to wrestle Medusa, and then Medusa didn't show, So it was a whole melee of people that, we were in the ring, and she hit me with a chair and I bled all over the place. I was the first female to bleed in the United States. In that incident, I just soaked my clothes with blood. And people remember that, again, November to Remember 1993. It splattered all over my Facebook timeline, just to remind people,
I
because
had
for a
quite the
while.
crush on Sherry Martel. When I was
Oh,
younger, I have no shame in admitting that.
yes.
Ghastly makeup and all, I didn't care. She was
E-
pretty.
Everyone did. She was one of my biggest idols, and it was probably one of the more exciting moments that then it was because before that, previous to that, I had changed gimmicks sort of after my introduction as the person that got my top ripped off, who they were advertising as an adult film star, and I had just turned 18. So, that was my gimmick then. So after that, I did a whole American flag gimmick, and I worked in a swimsuit competitions, and battle royals, and all kinds of silly angles with Kevin Lawler, who was Jerry Lawler's son, was Kevin Christian at the time. So we did, leading up to all of this. Woman was there, Nancy Benoit, as Sherry also, and we were kind of trying to create something between me and Sherry. Then in Ultra Clash, we had the battle royal, the first time intergender battle royal of ECW, Eastern Championship Wrestling, and I was in that, clad in my American flag patriotic stuff, and me and Sherry started it off there. She ripped off my hair, as everyone remembers, and that angle was redone with other people that actually knew their hair was coming off. I did not know that it was coming off. So that was that mess. Stopped doing that after that. Briefly managed the Rock and Rebel, and then he blew his knee out. So he was out for whatever amount of time. Then I was managing Stevie Richards, who was working with Tommy Dreamer at the time. So we worked together until a few shows, until the arena show. And then I turned against Stevie Richards for Shane Douglas and joined the Triple Threat, the first of Triple Threat, and became the first head cheerleader to Shane Douglas and Curtis Hughes.
What was it like working with Mr. Hughes? Is awesome. I thought he was a first class gentleman. Shane, I've never had the privilege of meeting. I'd like to, but what was it like working with Shane? Because he was the kind of that glue, it seemed like, of the, he kind of, he was the champ for so long. He kind of held things together, even, left, came back very quickly. Was it fun to work with him?
Shane, I met, like I said, with all the others back when I was a child, following NWA, WCW, when he was like the Dynamic Dudes. He was there, but I had met him previous to that at independent shows. He had started out as Troy Martin for
Orndorff's
Dominic.
little brother.
Yes, so we had known each other way before my start in ECW, but working then with him was quite comfortable, and he's a really smart guy. So even if you don't know what to do, he'll make it look like you know what to do. Perfect gentleman, and just like just a pleasure to get to work with, and a great excitement to be able to be interjected as the manager of the ECW World Heavyweight Champion at the time. And someone like Curtis Hughes, just unbelievable in his talent and skill. He's just like he's able to train people now to get them through to the bigger promotions. He has transformed himself. If you saw him now, you'd be like, the guy aged backwards. He looks incredible, totally in shape, muscles everywhere. Trained Kiera Hogan and a few other people that made their way to AEW. And back in the day, even when Curtis was a really big guy, was still just able to move and work toe to toe, head to head with the best of them, the biggest and the best of them. He got, unfortunately, stuck there with 911 for a while we were, all together as a faction, because then I had to get choke slammed after every single solitary match that we had for a while. And so that was a feud that took place for a good amount of time. Shane wrestled like Sabu, and that's when he was first coming out on the gurney with the Hannibal mask on, and when Sabu was first introduced. So that was a big Shane Douglas feud while I was a part of the Triple Threat.
I want to ask you, talk about like the motivation of Paul Heyman. I'll make, I might be wrong, but this is my opinion. Tommy Dreamer was never over. He didn't get over when the fucking I shouldn't say he never got over, because he did. He didn't get over when the Sandman caned him. He didn't get over when he blinded him. He didn't even get over when they brought Foley in for the first. He didn't get over until Raven. No matter what they tried, Raven made Dreamer a star. But there was a match where they were still trying their hardest, and it was and Cactus gives the Dreamer the kendo stick, and he tells him to cane you. Dreamer cracks you. I mean, it had to hurt. He cracked you right in the face, cracked you between the legs. How did Paul Heyman say? Did he say he's not going to hit you that hard? He's going to pull it. How did he convince you to take? Because I've been hit with batons and canes and martial arts. It hurts like a motherfucker.
No convincing. Okay, so after being ejected from being the manager of the world champion because of so many choke slams, I was then brought back as the character of the Virgin Princess Angel to manage the Iron Man Tommy Cairo, who I had stolen from Peaches, who left the Sandman to be with Tommy Cairo, and then I was interjected. We did all kinds of intergender tag team matches, myself and Tommy Cairo against Peaches and Tommy Dreamer. And at the time I was training Francine in the ECW school. So after so many times that Peaches didn't show up, I insisted that we debut Francine as her replacement. So I wrestled Francine in the first few matches of me and Tommy Cairo actually being paired up. She was billed as Penny Pulsations in a nightclub at one point, and we did that match, and that was real cute. And I have some stuff, and then we wrestled in Hamburg. I don't know, they called her some stripper with Tommy Dreamer, but I think she might have had a different name. And then also we had her take the choke slam when she was Miss Montgomeryville. I helped her out of the ring with that. I took the choke slam and she took it. So previous to that, Francine was then debuting as I was changing my gimmick as into the Virgin Princess Angel, managing Tommy Cairo. So with that, as we had all the matches leading up to the one at the arena, which would be the main match, which was myself and Tommy Cairo and Woman with Sandman against Tommy Dreamer and Mick Foley. Cactus Jack, whatever you want to call the douche, is up to you. So before the match, we discussed, I put it all out there because I've told this story many a times. We discussed exactly what was going down, and I was fine with everything because everyone around me and even Tommy Cairo, we knew that the match ended at the cane shot to my head by Mick Foley. That's it. That was the end of the match as far as we knew. Okay, so everything worked out just fine, during the match. Not so much for Tommy Cairo, unfortunately, but he has his own complaints that we could get to about the match and tell you about what he suffered through that match as well, with just people not listening. So as we get to the end of the match, and after Mick Foley canes me, and the entire building pops as expected. That was supposed to be the end,
I
right?
popped. I won't lie.
Okay, so and that would have been enough for you, right? That would have been enough to just
Yeah,
see
that's
that,
the end of the
and
match. It comes at you,
so
bam, that's it.
and that's it, and that's on TV. Everyone's seen it. Just cut to that. And Tommy Dreamer would try to this day deny that he did anything at all, because it wasn't. Oh, what is it on film? Did you ever see it on film? Well, they have it on film, they just didn't show everyone else, but I got the pictures, so I posted them all over the place. Tommy Dreamer, after Mick Foley caned me in the head, and I'm laying there bleeding, he decides to get the cane. And I'm sorry, after Tommy Dreamer came in, I'm sorry. They he picked up the cane and opened my legs up. First, he kicked me in the face a couple times, which I have a picture of. Totally unnecessary. I didn't even know he was coming near me after the match. And then he picks my legs up and opens my legs up real wide. And I, like I said, should have known something was weird before the match, because when we were discussing it, they were joking around and they were like, "Don't wear underwear." And I was like, "Why wouldn't I wear underwear?" And I really just don't wear them. And I used to wear like these thigh-high stockings, So I was like, well, my legs are protected, so no big deal, you know. Don't wear underwear, whatever. It's a crowd. There's no children in the crowd. So this ass clown gets gets me and opens my legs up and holds them up and gets the cane and whacks me between the legs. And like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with being hit with a cane or not,
Oh
but
yeah.
you got like little ridges in them that if
Mhm.
you get like certain loose skin, it will grab around and pull back, So that's exactly what happened. When he hit me in my private part, it pulled back and snapped. And that, and like, I was, but you could see the blood on the bottom of my dress. And people were like, that's from your head? And I'm like, and I couldn't even like, I didn't even know how to say anything or tell anybody. And when we got back to the locker room, he was like, I'm not even sorry about that because it was great.
See, I was
Thanks.
just gonna ask, did he
Walks away.
apologize?
No, not at all. And then I told Paul, because I showed Jason, I was like, this is not normal here. I was bleeding. It was scary. It was a scary situation. And I was on a lot of stuff back then, but I felt it and I knew something was definitely wrong. And then I went and showed Paul, and he was like, you can't prove whether or not it was like that before or after, like it was no big deal. He was like, I just go put some ice on it or whatever. And, start making all kinds of wise comments to try to joke about it and joke it off. And, Jason, fucking wasn't any better in dealing with the situation. He was like, you are deformed. And it's just like, yeah, I'm deformed. Like my dad had to pick me up from the building, bring me to the hospital, like, and he said, I don't want you to go back around these people because look at what they're doing to you. Like, I don't know what I was thinking. And I did go back after being laid up and not being able to do anything for like the next few weeks. I wasn't able to work out. I wasn't even able to move. I blew up like a lot. And all the wedding gowns that were laid out for me to wear, which I have so many left of them now because I didn't get to wear them. By the time the next time camp come around and Paul calls me and says, I need you down at the arena, you know, pick out one of your wedding dresses. And every one I have laid out is from a size 2 to a size 8. And here I had blown up to like a size 18, and I couldn't fit myself in any of them. So I had to then go out and get myself a fucking wedding dress to go behind my father's back and his wishes, to then return to that same arena where I had been fucking deformed and laid up for weeks with nobody helping me and no one even checking to see if I was all right after something like that. And it was like, I had laid up like that, and no one had bothered to check on me. And then it's like, oh, we need you for this show. And I got there looking totally different. And I got a reaction that wasn't, wasn't all kind at all. And I realized how I had looked, but it was because of the circumstances. Is you hurt someone, and they're not going to be able to take care of themselves pretty much. So I show up in with my dreadlocks and huge as possible, and got in a ring with it during an angle with the pit bulls with Gary and Anthony Durrani at the time was live with Jason the Terrible and Jason Knight, which was including me, trying to include me in some weird equation that I really didn't understand. And I kind of knew that it was more of something to bring me back, to bury me more than accelerate anything that I was about to do. But I wanted to go along with it just to have my ending make sense. I knew it was coming to an end. So when they told me that, oh, we'll get in the ring with Hack Myers, and you're going to take the Shah a few times and whatever, wasn't really informed about the pile driver. you know I couldn't move at the time was the thing, because between my legs was a deformed fucking mess, and I was in so much pain that I could, I was taking my medicine, but I was still feeling every bit of it. So when I got in there and did my few slaps and the kiss spot and everything, like after the couple Shahs, and it's supposed to end at the Shahs, and it didn't end at the Shahs. He picked me up without me knowing what he was even trying to do. And then when I realized, when it was, he was trying to pile drive me, and I was trying to lift my legs up, but I couldn't, because I was in so much pain from the waist down. If you could see the shot, I could barely lift my legs to get in the ring, let alone be turned fucking upside down for a pile driver. So then, I didn't get my legs all the way up, and the end of my boot caught around the bottom of my dress, and my legs collapsed forward, and then just totally destroying the back of my head, my neck, my spine. I collapsed on top of myself, pretty much. You could see it. It's on video. So they stretchered me out. I bled for that event as well, just from it, which it didn't get much attention at all. But I was stretchered out for that while people sang me off. And that was my last appearance in ECW. That's the way that ended.
But why do you think, like in your case here, you've been hit with canes, you've been pile driven, you bleed, clothes ripped off. Come on, I want to lay you. Even later, lesbian angle, dancing like a go-go girl in the the night they sold that tape like crazy. The night the lights went out in the arena and all this, and you guys are gone. You hear you're done. You're done. Now, Lori Fullington. I don't know her, but I've heard she had Regis Peaches did a lot of no shows, so they got rid of her. Yet they bring her back. They bring her back. Sabu, no shows. They bring him back. They bring all these people back, second chances. Why did they treat like you or Kimona? Why was it just like, done?
Well, the thing is, Peaches was married to Sandman, and they had a kid, and they were all really great friends with Todd. Sabu, of course, was marketable as fuck, so who's gonna not bring him back for any reason? And I was a child groupie who they were more threatened by than felt that they had anything to keep around for. Like, it was literally I was out the door before I turned 20 years old. Like I was in and out. By 19, I was out. I was there for a short amount of time, but the time that I did spend there then carried over into other work that I got with people wanting to use those letters connected to my name that I would not let do, because then I myself and Madman Pondo started the intergender, hardcore feuds of death matches and ultra violent thumbtack matches and all kinds of stuff. And we brought that all over the Midwest and all the way to the Insane Clown Posse and JCW, which was Juggalo Championship Wrestling then. And, and I was the big clown there and the first female to introduce hardcore into wrestling in an intergender situation. So I was the person wrestling in glass and thumbtacks and mouse traps and even rat traps and barbed wire and all that kind of stuff before any of these females that you see now who are playing are doing it. So
you ever want to or approached by, I guess, a two-way thing to work for XPW when Rob Black, kind of made his
yes,
own ECW. He's even relaunched it now. It's the exact same thing it was 20 years ago, but that's his gig.
it is. I'm very good friends with Jasmine St. Clair, who works there regularly, and she's actually asked me to attend a few shows so that we could discuss a few things, and still kind of thinking about it. So, real happy to see that he has revamped his product and he seems to be using all the good people to get over everything he wants to portray in this version of XPW 2023.
I watched his first two shows, and I think my issue was one. Oh, it's the same thing, and here comes Rob. He's the heel character again? Why are you doing this? But I liked his little deathmatch tournament he did, but when you watch a death tournament live, you get in that thing was a 6-hour show. So I didn't feel like I got my money's worth. I feel like I got my time wasted because, you got to clean all that shit in the ring and all that. But, I give him credit. He wanted to do it. Went to jail for the obscenity charges, which I kind of really think was bullshit at the end of the day. But then, he wanted to do it. He loved it. He's doing his thing again. But I just noticed so many ex-ECW guys in the beginning. I mean, when ECW folded, even before it folded, here's Shane and Funk and Candido. Everybody was there. So I was kind of wondered why, why you didn't show. It was ECW Light is basically, but it had a very weird home invasion angle on one of their TV shows that I found so tacky. It was just enthralling in the same sense.
Yeah, I mean, they're a different product, but I think everyone that followed ECW was really trying to be the next ECW was the thing, and I believe if anyone came close, it was probably a tie between XPW and CCW at the time, who I also worked for, CCW with Nick Gage and Justice Payne in their first run of the first at least half a year shows. So while Nick Gage was champion, and he's like in the bigger leagues now, which is great for him after all he's been through.
My
But
son is a huge mark. MDK, every GCW show Gage is on, we have to watch. He loves Gage so much.
He's definitely come a long way, and good for him, because a lot of guys from that time either unfortunately are not with us anymore, or it just have disappeared and they're not around for some reason, so mysteriously just gone. So great luck to him. He's doing great, and it's great to see him somewhere where he's being appreciated for his blood, literally putting his blood into this business. So
was there any wrestler that you were ever paired with that you were like, oh, fuck, I gotta work with this guy? Was there ever anyone that you just hated to work with?
You know what, I'm going to pass on that one.
Okay.
Just because I might still be friends with them, so I might not want to say anything. But there's always those people that you work with that you realize sometimes right off the bat that it's not going to work, but you give it a try anyway, and it just ends up being the disaster you knew it was going to be, but life being all about experience, we live and we learn. So,
And what do
no,
you still do conventions, you pop up at shows, everything. You're very active again.
yes, yes. Actually, I started out a little bit over a year ago doing some events. I did the big event for Kevin Nasta and 365 Damage 365 Promotions. I sat with Tony Schiavone, who I've known for a very long time, who I was very happy to see and spend some time with, and also Thunder Rosa, who was the AEW Women's Champion at the time. So I had one on the left, one on the right. I was in the center. Very nice event. We have a video of it. Of course, we do videos of all the events, me and my daughter. So that was very nice, very successful. And that was around my first time back being around. So I decided to then take more bookings for conventions, which I thought it was just going to be conventions at the time on my way back. So I did a book signing at the Wrestling Collector from Tommy Fierro, who I've known since he was 15 years old. I was on one of his first conventions, and now, so many years later at his own store, and Tommy's got his own play going on Broadway, and he's doing all kinds of stuff. So I'm real proud of that kid. He's like come a long way. And so I was there signing with the Godwins and Tony Schiavone and Thunder Rosa also. And that also very, very successful. We make videos out of everything. So there's videos of these on YouTube and real fun stuff. Before that, I was doing a wrestling podcast show, and within, I guess, 6 months, I got about 60 shows done, and with just very little complaint from Mick Foley and Bobby Fulton. The whole station took down all my videos, and I'm no longer a part of that network. So I've created my own network, other than Married to Wrestling here at the hardcoregraveyard.com with Corey G. I also have a YouTube called Variety Vault, of which I host Wrestling Rewind with Tommy Cairo, that I was paired up with in ECW. And we do book readings of different things and talk about past arena results and compare promotions. And we've done interviews with Heidi Lee Morgan and Brittany Brown, Gary Michael Capetta, Ricky O. A lot of people were on our show previously. So we're just bringing it over to that station now, along with a lot of other programs on like NASCAR and OnlyFans hosts and a few other wrestling shows. So we're doing a whole other network over there. So I've been working on getting the YouTubes and the shows together. And as far as the live appearances, my next one is going to be, I believe, in May 6th, is Wrestling Con. And that's going to be the cast of all of 1980s WWF wrestling superstars. If you saw the lineup for this thing, you'd be like, wow, it's like unbelievable. And this is an event held by Tommy Fierro and ISPW, just bringing in all the stars and have all the great matches. I'm going to be hosting a Wrestling Rewind from the show and sitting with Dr. D, Dave Schultz. So lucky me, no one can come fuck with me, because if they do, they're going to get the shit smacked out of them. So I'm protected. So that's another event I will be attending. More recently, of course, we know the shit show that I attended, which was absolutely awful. And do you have anything to say about that before I do? Because I don't really want to say too much, but
I've never been to it. I know Gary has talked about it on the Barbed Wire Bite, another show here, and he's mentioned it. Find Yourself Wrestling is the name of the company. I have no problem saying it. I'm not affiliated with them. I know they turned a a stiff, I think it was a shoot, if I'm correct, that Gary got stiff. They turned that into an angle, trying to do a little something. But I've heard things, people can
Yeah,
read
well, the thing is,
Facebook.
it wasn't only Gary that got stiffed. It was the whole entire show. The show, very briefly, because I don't want to give too much attention to this short bus rider who ran the
Wait,
show, but he's literally mentally retarded. Went to a special school, which I think is why no one's beat the shit out of him already. He changed the venue 3 times in 2 days. The fire marshals were after him. He had no licensing, he had no insurance. There was no way he could have gotten insurance in that amount of time, changing a building from 3 different locations. That's not the way New Jersey
no.
works. It never has been. So this little douchebag still got to run in a bar and pretty much didn't he does not know what he's doing. He doesn't know how to run a locker room. He can't wrestle. I don't know where he's saying he was trained. He had a crew full of other marks around them who were also mentally retarded. The people who were trying to help him out and get the show organized for him, it was just impossible. The event didn't start until like 10 o'clock at night. And after the event, he almost ran someone down with his truck, running from the police because everyone chased him because he didn't pay anyone, and then wanted to act like he didn't know what he did wrong for some reason. Um, and then after the event, after everyone is victimized and burned by this this little retard, and I'm going to say it because that's what the adjective used to describe him, he's retarded. Okay, so after everyone gets burned by this little moron, his friend, who's another retard named Grim, does a video on the show, and within the first 5 minutes of the show decides to demonize me, like I had anything to do with it. I show up at a show where they're asking me to be the general manager, advertising me to manage Nunzio in the first intergender match against Angel Orsini. It didn't turn out that way. Nunzio didn't show up because he was fucking smart, smarter than the rest of us who showed up to try to do something nice for Boss Mahoney's family and his son Chris, who was there, who none of any of the money went to because fucking this little moron went and ate a steak dinner with whatever he got at the door, stiffed everyone. My match didn't go on until about 6 in line, at way after 10 o'clock in a bar. There was about 19 paid people there, but the people who were there were all adults. Now in this video, this idiot demonizes me by saying, why would you book this, Dalton? She's crazy, look at her, and then puts a censor mark over my chest.
Yeah, I saw that.
And told everyone that my nipples were hanging out in the faces of children, and laughs at it and makes a joke out of it. Like this is something that myself and Angel Orsini got into a tussle, and I beat her with the cane in several different ways. She bled all over my wedding dress. It was quite the scene. And this fucking goof was there to shoot the scene up close, and he knows damn right well that nothing like that happened. My chest was not, my nipples were not exposed at all.
No, even the top of your breast. It was pretty much what I'm seeing now, only unbuttoned, so to speak.
Exactly. It's called cleavage. So this moron says this is slanderously and very defaming in a way where the bookings that I had that followed this show, a lot of people now don't want to use me because they believe that I exposed my chest to a crowd of children. And it may be something that I did when I was 18 years old for ECW, but wouldn't be even near anything I would do as a 48-year-old woman for some nobody retard over the bridge who draws 19 people in the third location that he can't stabilize anywhere because he's a fucking idiot. Like, and then these people get on and start saying shit about, like, they don't know me. If you don't know me, it's because you're a mark and you don't know enough about wrestling, because I've been in this business longer than you've been alive, most of you. And I've done more for people that you're watching on TV right now than you'll ever know. Like the things that I've done in character development and bringing people into this business and managing people and doing things to get them where they are. Like the list goes on and on. You know, I've ran my own promotions and I created my own characters that were successful. And if these people don't know who I am, then that sort of, you know, reflects more on them than me, doesn't it?
And for the people, if you're listening, you're listening. If you're watching the video feed of this, you can see right here where I'm pointing. Well, you really can't because it cuts off. There's the picture of the event. There's no nipples sticking out. There's no nothing. It's and I'm going to tell you what, as a lifelong wrestling fan, as any wrestling fan will tell you, that look at that. Let's use the Attitude Era for example. Cleavage and sex sell. So someone showing their breasts is not out of the ordinary in any realm of professional wrestling. And we're not even seeing the breasts. We're just seeing, basically, as you can see, you see a split, you know where the boobs are. It's nothing that you wouldn't see on WDTV nowadays, and it's geared for the children.
And it's not only you know, females with their breasts and their rears hanging out to an extent that it's unavoidable to see at least what's considered semi-nudity on current TV. They're not only doing that, but they're also putting men in angles where their penises are being grabbed. They're grabbing each other's penises and doing spots where it looks like they're sucking each other off or humping each other's ass. And but none of that is inappropriate. But yet I'm being called, you know, I'm not child friendly for certain people's groups now, which it honestly has now lost me quite a bit of money over a YouTuber. And this is how wrestling is today. It's like it could be taken over, unfortunately, especially on the independent circuit, by a bunch of retarded children and YouTubers that call themselves wrestlers that want to get themselves over by smearing other wrestlers and thinking that they look cute, you know. That's exactly.
Which my goal is to start a promotion here in the Midwest. I would book you in a heartbeat, and you could show your cleavage all you want. I don't have.
Yeah, and cleavage, and that's all it would be. Like,
Yeah, I didn't
I'm
say your
not
nips
sure.
or anything. Just
Right, and you would. But people make up such stories, and it's amazing because as my story progresses, it just to get off of what I'm doing currently as ridiculous disrespect, and let's just get to why it's such a disrespect. That after ECW, I ran my own shows. I developed all my own talent that then moved to NWA New Jersey and all got positions, very successful positions in working for other independents all around the world, including Japan. While in the NWA New Jersey, I managed every tag team, US tag team champions of the NWA in that time. Including the Misfits and East LA and others, that it just, the list goes on and on. I was a part of promoting the shows. I was a part of every Eddie Gilbert Memorial show that was held. I had a lot to do with organizing for a lot of different people. I was part of wardrobe and hair and makeup for people for a long time. I had a ring that I rented out and provided to people. Other than running my own shows between the years of 1994 and around 1997, under the banner of the NWA and Dennis Carluzzo, who helped me run those shows. I ran for a very long time my own shows until around 1997, where I started to travel extensively for the Insane Clown Posse and a gentleman named Dan Curtis and also JT Lightning that started me and Madman Pondo within introducing the hardcore death matches to professional wrestling. Ruby Wax did an interview with me on the introduction of this hardcore sport, as she called it. You could see this anywhere on YouTube. So I was interviewed by many outlets as the pioneer of death matches. And then that year, I also started MMA as the one of the first female fighters. I went to Japan and worked in L1 against one of the toughest Japanese wrestlers from LLPW, Yumika Hoda. I did lose, but I was there, and not a lot of people can say that. I moved on to do MMA fights in Canada, which were the first female fights in Canada. I was the pioneer of women's MMA in many different cities, states, countries, what have you, with many different female fighters. So beyond that, I have been in a various amount of films and magazines and publications for different activities, including acting and modeling and apartment wrestling and domination and what have you. Very big in the bondage and domination field, as I was Mistress Tara Titanium at one point, and I appeared and worked for the Jerry Springer show for an extended period of time, where you would see a lot of wrestlers on there and a lot of
Pitbull
shows.
#2 being one of them.
Yes, yes, exactly.
We talk about that a lot on the Barbed Wire Bite.
Yes, so you'll see a lot of shows that I booked and had a part of getting other wrestlers on the show. So that was a very good time in then the 1999 and after. So MMA was a great time. Jerry Springer was a great time. Films were a great time. I think my leading up to in between the time I was in USWA as a wrestler. So pretty weird. I was there as a 12-year-old fan, and then after working with Jerry Lawler for such an extended period of time in the NWA, then around 96, I believe, I went down there to work with Miss Texas, who people know is Jacqueline from WWF. So and that was a fantastic experience. She's one of the finest of women in professional wrestling, both in personality and in skill and talent. She's a wonderful human being all around, and I really enjoyed working with her, probably more than any of the girls that I worked with at the time. I was of an era where, because I worked for so many independent promotions like NWF and WWA and Savoldi, IWCCW. I had a variety of different girls independent at the time that ranged in age from the older groups that were trained by Moolah, like Brittany Brown and Katie Kincaid and ladies like that, and then directly feuded with Wendy Richter throughout Canada for a good solid year for NWF. So, Sherry Martel as well, Candy Devine and Debbie Combs, who I had done several matches with, Leilani Kai and all these ladies during a time when there was not a lot of women wrestlers around. So the interchange of different people was really interesting during the 90s into the millennium. And once I got to the millennium, I started wrestling for Glow, the Gorgeous Ladies of Outrageous Wrestling, which was a reboot of the original Glow, of course, but a little wilder and updated, like trying to make it like a ECW for women sort of promotion. So immediately there, I tried to get involved in the, more writing some of the storylines and teaching the girls how to cut promos and, do some stuff that they weren't aware of how to do with previous trainings. So I helped out a lot in that, and I wrestled for them from about, I believe it was 98, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. So I had a feud with a few girls there, Ty Killer Weed and GI Ho. They had their own kind of people made up, you know. So worked with them to teach them whatever I could, and then the promotion had changed when a guy named Steve Carroll, who had some hand to do in porn, I believe, bought the company and wanted to upgrade it and bring in porno stars and have the wrestlers then work with the porno stars and all the strippers and people who were not trained. And they wanted to combine porno scenes in with the wrestling, and it became a whole different company. He asked me to change my name to Mr. Star Titanium because that was my name in childhood films that were of pornographic nature and against the law. But he, wanted Tara Titanium, as a lot of people do. So I changed my name when it became Women's Extreme Wrestling. Still feuding with Christy Kiss. We did an angle that, where then she was bleeding at my hands. And we had a lot of things planned to do, but we had a lot of personal problems because Dan Cole's a douchebag and he doesn't know how to treat people. When someone is using your ring and using your school, which I had all of those things because in 2003, I ran another promotion, Master Championship Wrestling, here in South Philly Wrestling Academy, which Balls Mahoney was a trainer at, and also Harley Lewis. So while I was doing that simultaneously, Jasmine St. Clair was running 3PW and booking me there. My first encounter in wrestling managing anyone was with the Rockin' Rebel. And then my last encounter in wrestling was wrestling the Rockin' Rebel. So in 3PW, I had initially had an angle with Jasmine to wrestle her, but she's too sexy for her own good. So we moved on and decided not to do that after a little thing we did with Ron Jeremy, and it worked out the way it did. So she brought me back then to work with Rebel, which everyone thought that she was setting me up. Oh, Jasmine's going to have you hurt. And it was like nothing like that because we talk all the time and I love Jasmine. It just wasn't what it looked like. But I got in a ring with Rebel, and unfortunately, a few minutes before my match, I think it was Chris Chetty and Todd had come out and told me that Teddy passed away. Ted Petty passed away, and I was zoned out I was like in another world because I was really close with Teddy. I had just went out to lunch with him that week, and I knew something was wrong with him because he couldn't see the menu when he was trying to eat. But you just don't think someone's just going to die out of nowhere. And I heard that, and right before I went out to the ring with Rebel, and I just kind of blacked out. And I watched a match, and I don't even remember performing it. It was like that bad of a shock to me. So that was my last in-ring performance. And that's where I called it kind of quits, and I shut down my school, and just kind of left town for a while.
See how much there is to talk about? I mean, because I said at the beginning, this isn't like an interview or part of the barbed wire when I said, welcome to Married to Wrestling. This is going to be a weekly show. So as you can see, maybe more, there's a lot of stories. And next week, you're bringing on one of your friends. I was fortunate enough to meet Mr. Jason Knight.
Yes. We're gonna get a whole great story out of Jason of his beginnings in wrestling and like how I got interested in all that stuff. Jason's got a great story, and me and Jason have a lot of history and a long background, so it should be a great show. I hope everybody will join us and tune in to hear Jason Knight, the sexiest man on earth.
After that, I'm going to ask her all about deathmatch wrestling because I am a deathmatch wrestling fanatic, and we might even play deathmatch trivia.
Oh, Okay. I look forward to it. So I'm pretty sure I've probably yapped and yapped enough. And we can, like we said, we'll be here every week, Sunday at 7 p.m. on Hardcore Graveyard. And we are on many different outlets to choose from.
Everything.
So choose one and tune in or listen to us because yeah, we got a lot to say.
I don't
So
have anything else to say tonight, do you?
Nah, no. But until the next time, for my co-host, Corey G, I am the Virgin Princess Angel for Married to Wrestling, saying have a good night and a good life. Good night.